I'll propose specific. So I'm going to be making what I would do immediately.
Generation Forward PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The Democratic candidates are here and they are ready to debate. Lincoln Chafee. Former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. And former Senator Jim Webb of Virginia. Plenty of politicians evolve on issues, but even some Democrats believe you change your positions based on political expediency. You were against same-sex marriage, now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies, now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life.
And what democratic socialism is about is saying that it is immoral and wrong that the top 1/10 of 1% in this country own almost 90%, own almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. That it is wrong today in a rigged economy that 57% of all new income is going to the top 1%, where you have manufacturers and where you have gun shops knowingly giving guns to criminals or aiding and abetting that. Of course, we should take action.
Secretary Clinton, is Bernie Sanders tough enough on guns?
No, not at all.
The T-minus voting record, I don't think I am pandering, but you have not been in the United States Congress.
Well, maybe
and when
that's
you
a
want
healthy
to
thing.
check it out, and if you think that we can simply go forward and pass something tomorrow without bringing people together, you are surely
Let me bring
mistaken.
in somebody.
I believe that as president, I would not be so quick to pull for a military tool. I believe that a no-fly zone in Syria at this time, actually, Secretary, would be a mistake. You have to enforce no-fly zones. And I believe, especially with the Russian Air Force in the air, it could lead to an escalation.
Well, first of all,
can I get in this discussion at some point?
Well, yes, you'll be coming in next, but she was directly quoted.
Thank you.
So.
I've been standing over here for about 10 minutes trying.
Okay.
It's gone back and
Secretary.
forth over there.
But I think the Secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
thank you. Me too. Me too.
You know?
I think we need someone that has the best in ethical standards as our next president. That's how I feel.
Secretary Clinton, do you want to respond?
No.
Which is why, and I see the chair of the DNC here, look how glad we are actually to be talking about the issues that matter most to people around their kitchen table. We need to get wages to go up, college more affordable.
Thank you,
and
Governor.
We need to make America 100% clean electric by 2050.
I want to talk about
Not what caused the problem last time, but what could cause it next
Senator
time.
Sanders.
me
Secretary
be
Clinton
very
just said that her policy is tougher than yours.
Well, that's not true.
I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
Congress does not regulate Wall Street. Wall Street regulates Congress. Hank Paulson, Bernanke came in and they said, guys, the economy is going to collapse because Wall Street is going under. It's going to take the economy with them. And you know what I said to Hank Paulson? I said, Hank, your guys, you come from Goldman Sachs. Your millionaire and billionaire friends caused this problem. How about your millionaire and billionaire fans paying for the bailout? Not working families in this country.
Thanks. In 1999, you voted for the very bill that made banks bigger.
The Glass-Steagall was my very first vote. I just arrived. My dad had died in office. I was appointed to the office. It was my very first vote.
Are you saying you didn't know what you were voting for?
I just arrived at Senate.
And a lot of the xenophobes, the immigrant haters, like some that we've heard, like Donald Trump, that carnival barker in the Republican Party.
I'll ask you, if elected, would you shut down the NSA surveillance program?
I'm sorry?
Would you shut down the NSA surveillance
Absolutely,
program?
of course.
Hillary Clinton, how would you not be a third term of President Obama?
Well, I think that's pretty obvious. I think being the first woman president would be quite a change.
Candidates are back, which I'm very happy to see. It's a long story. Let's continue, shall we? Secretary Clinton, welcome back.
Well, thank you. You know, it does take me a little longer. That's all I can say.
That's right.
I'd have to say the enemy soldier that threw the grenade that wounded me, but he's not around right now to talk to.
Well, that does it for this Democratic presidential debate. On behalf of everyone at CNN, we want to thank the candidates, our debate partners at Facebook, the Wynn Resort, and the Democratic National Committee.
Question, most popular question from Google is Rand Paul still running for president? And I don't know, I wouldn't be doing this dumbass live streaming if I weren't. So yes, I still am running for president. Get over it. Where is Rand Paul in the polls? This is not live. We can't edit this, right? All right.
For this reason, I'm withdrawing from any consideration of being the Democratic Party's nominee
I
for
think
the
he had a
presidency.
number of consulting contracts with different entities.
Well, if he had a number of them, do you recall any of them?
I know that he did some work for my husband.
Well, he worked for the Clinton Foundation.
That's correct.
Okay. He worked for Media Matters.
I'm sure he did.
Got it. We'll follow up tomorrow. Anything else to convey? Question mark. Now, that one is interesting because that was the very email where Mr. Blumenthal was asking you to intervene on behalf of a business deal that he was pursuing in Libya. What did you mean by what are you hearing now?
I have no idea.
Before you give Mr. Blumenthal too much credit, you agree he didn't write a single one of those cables or memos he sent you.
I'm sorry, what?
He didn't write a single one of those cables or memos.
I don't know who wrote them. He's the one who sent them to me.
Would you be surprised to know not a single one of those was from him?
I don't know where he got the information that he was sending to me.
Did you ask? You're sending me very specific, detailed intelligence. What is your source? That seems to me like a pretty good question.
I did learn later that he was talking to or sharing information from former American intelligence officials.
By the name of? Who wrote those cables?
I don't recall. I don't know, Mr. Chairman.
Tyler, and by the way, Tyler Drumheller, that's who actually authored the cables that you got from Mr. Blumenthal. Tyler knows him well and says he's a mean, vicious little, I'm not going to say the word, but he did.
I don't know what this line of questioning does to help us get to the bottom of the deaths for Americans.
I'll be happy to help you understand that, Madam Secretary. Go ahead and let you know ahead of time why it's relevant. It's relevant because our ambassador was asked to read and respond to Sidney Blumenthal's drivel. It was sent to him to read and react to. In some instances, on the very same day he was asking for security. So I think it is eminently fair to ask why Sidney Blumenthal had unfettered access to you, Madam Secretary, with whatever he wanted to talk about.
2012, but you also stated that you left your office on the night of the attacks and went to your home in Northwest Washington because you said you knew the next few days were going to be taxing and the department was going to be looking to you. I want to talk about a few things. Do you have a SCIF in your home?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and who else was at your home? Were you alone?
I was alone, yes.
The whole night?
Well, yes, the whole night.
Well, I don't know why that's funny. I mean, did you have any in-person briefings? I don't find it funny at all.
I'm sorry, a little note of levity at 7:15.
Well, I mean, the reason I say it's not funny is because it went well into the night when our folks on the ground were still in danger. So I don't think it's funny to ask you if you were alone the whole night.
Congresswoman, you asked if I had a SCIF. I had secure phones. I had other equipment that kept me in touch with the State Department at all times. I did not sleep all night. I was very much focused on what we were doing. Destroyer, a tanker. He served in Vietnam and the Persian Gulf. Excuse me.
You need some water, Madam Secretary?
Would you like us to take a 60-second, 2-minute break?
No. Just let me grab a lozenge. So, Congressman, I had the utmost confidence in both of them.
Thank you. Let me say this. You know, this hearing began with the chairman reading a list of questions that he claimed were unanswered. In fact, those questions had been asked and answered many times. As a matter of fact, when we go back to the last questioner, you know, it was Speaker Boehner who, as a matter of fact, last Tuesday, Madam Secretary, Speaker Boehner acknowledged to Fox News the allegation that the U.S. government was involved in an illegal weapons program in
But after
Libya.
much thought, I've decided to end my campaign for the president today.
There was a time when I was, you know, very volatile, but, you know, I changed.
When was that?
As a teenager, I would go after people with rocks and bricks and baseball bats and hammers, and of course, many people know the story when I was 14 and I tried to stab someone.
Fortunately, I was working out this morning. There's an ad promoting Supergirl. She looked pretty hot.
What did you think about that? A presidential candidate calling you hot?
I heard about it, but you know, I don't know.
Pundit buddies say impossible. He's too outside the box. Well, they do know impossible. Impossible to balance the budget, impossible to get border security, impossible to put aside partisanship. I'm Ben Carson. I'm running for president, and I'm very much outside the box. There must be a good idea in there somewhere. I'm Ben Carson, and I approve this message.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Becky Quick, along with my CNBC colleagues, Carl Quintanilla and John Harwood. Governor Bobby Jindal. Senator Rick Santorum. Governor George Pataki. And Senator Lindsey Graham.
So to the Chinese, when it comes to dealing with me, you got a clenched fist or an open hand. You pick. The party's over to all the dictators. Make me commander-in-chief and this crap stops. Thank you, sir. I have been to the Antarctic. I've been to Alaska. I'm not a scientist, and I've got the grades to prove it. The #1 candidate on the other side thought she was flat broke after her and her husband were in the White House for 8 years. The #2 guy went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon, and I don't think he ever came back.
Becky, hold on.
Let
me try to get a word in edgewise. It's not what's happening. In Washington, they talk over each other. They're used to that, but I'm not.
Senator, let's let Governor Pataki have a chance to speak.
Yeah, very simply. You guys talk over each other in Washington all the time. I'm not used to that.
People in this state have loved Coors beer since it was founded in 1873. I can attest to this. The brewer later became part of SAB Miller, but now SAB may be bought by Budweiser owner InBev. Is it right to have a third of brewers in this country owned by one company
who drink a lot of Coors beer? So try to help. No, the answer is pretty simple. The answer is simple. There are no shortage of breweries around the United States of America. I do, as I travel around the country, I do pints and politics, and I go to breweries all over the place.
I may be the last person in this audience without an iPhone. I'm actually one of the last folks. I still have a BlackBerry in my pocket, and I basically use it for scheduling.
The one I use the most is Uber. You know, I used to get driven.
The only reason I have an iPhone is because I gave my number to Donald Trump. Don't do that. Governor. Donald has done more to upgrade my technology and my whole staff. Number one, Fox News. Sorry about CNBC. We're in a Republican primary here.
Thanks a lot.
We take your time back. Yeah.
Time's up.
Cut his microphone.
I am a long-suffering Jets fan. So my answer is obviously no. There's no reason to take off the day after the Super Bowl.
Go Tom Brady, go Patriots. Sorry, Colorado's late in the mix.
That concludes our first part of the evening. We're going to get set up for our next round.
Your vote. Live from the University of Colorado in Boulder, the Republican presidential debate.
Good evening. I'm Carl Quintanilla with my colleagues Becky Quick and John Harwood. On the stage from left to right, Governor John Kasich, Governor Mike Huckabee, Governor Jeb Bush, Senator Marco Rubio, Mr. Donald Trump, Dr. Ben Carson, Mrs. Carly Fiorina, Senator Ted Cruz, Governor Chris Christie, and Senator Rand Paul.
Well, John, I don't really have any weaknesses that I can think of. But my wife is down here in the front, and I'm sure if you'd like to talk to her later, she can give you more than you'll ever be able to take care of.
Well, gee, after the last debate, I was told that I didn't smile enough.
Fixed it.
I'm too agreeable, easygoing.
I see the weakness in those three people that are left on the Democratic stage. You know, I see a socialist, an isolationist, and a pessimist. And for the sake of me, I can't figure out which one is which.
And make Americans better off because your greatness would replace the stupidity and incompetence of others.
That's right.
Let's be honest. Is this a comic book version of a presidential campaign?
It's not a comic book.
They said that you have as much chance of cutting taxes that much without increasing the deficit as you would of flying away from that podium by flapping your arms really.
Then you have to get rid of Larry Kudlow, who sits on your panel, who's a great guy, who came out the other day and said, I love Trump's tax plan.
There are a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck in Florida as well. They're looking for a senator that will fight for them each and every day.
I get to respond, right?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Well, it's interesting. Over the last few weeks, I've listened to Jeb as you've walked around the country and said that you're modeling your campaign after John McCain, that you're going to launch a furious comeback the way he did by fighting hard in New Hampshire and places like that, carrying your own bag at the airport. You know how many votes John McCain missed when he was carrying out that furious comeback that you're now modeling it under?
He wasn't my
No, Jeb, I don't remember. Well, let me tell you, I don't remember you ever complaining about John McCain's vote record. The only reason why you're doing it now is because we're running for the same position, and someone has convinced you that attacking me is going to help you. Here's the bottom line. I'm not. My campaign is going.
Does your opposition to it show that you're not the kind of problem solver American voters want?
You know, let me say something at the outset. The questions that have been asked so far in this debate illustrate why the American people don't trust the media. This is not a cage match. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult two people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about?
I just want the record to reflect. I asked you about the debt limit, and I got no answer.
Okay, all right, you want me to answer that question? I'm happy to answer the question. I'm happy to answer the question, but let me tell you how the question is. Let me tell you how that. Let me tell you how that.
Senator Paul, I've got a question for you
So
on the
you don't
same
actually
subject.
want to hear the answer, John?
Senator Paul,
you don't want to hear the answer. You just want to insult.
You used your time on something else. Senator Paul,
So you're not interested in an answer,
John.
To
I'm
a
interested in
deal.
an answer from Senator Paul.
We're clearly not having that beer you mentioned. But I'll give you 30 more seconds
But I'll buy you a tequila.
Okay, all right.
Or even some famous Colorado brownies.
I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
You find a Democrat that's for cutting taxes, cutting spending $10, I'll give them a warm kiss.
Thank you, Governor. Carl?
You were on the homepage of their website with the logo over your shoulder.
If somebody put me on their homepage, they did it without my permission.
Does that not speak to your vetting process or judgment in any way?
No, it speaks to the fact that I don't know that it's going on.
So you're in favor of
I have not
increasing
been
that?
at all critical of him.
Where did I read this and come up with this that you were?
Probably, I don't know. You people write this stuff. I don't know where you.
You know, the Democrats have the ultimate super PAC. It's called the mainstream media. Who every single day.
If you saw that blimp that got cut loose from Maryland today, it's a perfect example of government. I mean, what we had was something the government made, basically a bag of gas, that cut loose, destroyed everything in its path, left thousands of people powerless, but they couldn't get rid of it because we had too much money invested in it, so we had to keep it.
Address this. John, could I follow up on this?
We'll come back around. I want to get to Governor Kasich.
What are the rules on who gets to follow up? How do we decide who gets to follow up? I've seen 20 other people follow up.
It was at the moderator discretion.
Okay. So
Governor Kasich, let's talk about marijuana.
I'd really
Governor
like to
Kasich.
mention something about my tax plan and how it relates to the discussion.
All
I
right,
thought this
well,
was
30
going to be a
seconds.
freewheeling discussion.
Sure,
right?
30 seconds.
All right.
And I have a permit, which is very unusual in New York, a permit to carry. And I do carry on occasion, sometimes a lot, but I like to be unpredictable so that people don't know exactly what you're carrying. Unlike
you
this
carrying
country,
right now?
by the way, unlike our country where we're totally predictable, and the enemy, whether it's ISIS or anybody else, they know exactly what we're doing because we have the wrong leadership. Trump, when you look at him, do you see someone with the moral authority to unite the country?
You know, as few questions I've got, the last one I need is to give him some more time. I love Donald Trump. He is a good man. I'm wearing a Trump tie tonight. Get over that one, okay?
Well, first of all, I'm 7-0 in my fantasy football league.
I had a feeling you were going to brag about that.
Gronkowski is still going strong. I have Ryan Tannehill, Marco, as my quarterback. He was 18 for 19 last week. So I'm doing great, but we're not gambling.
Talking about getting
We have a
government
government
involved in fantasy football? We have, wait a second, we have $19 trillion in debt. We have people out of work. We have ISIS and Al-Qaeda attacking us. And we're talking about fantasy football? Can we stop? Stop. I've laid out.
Meaning government?
No, John. John, do you want me to answer or you want to answer? How are we going to do it? Because I got to tell you the truth, even in New Jersey, what you're doing is called rude. So,
These folks, CNBC, they had it down at 3.5 hours. I just read today in the New York Times, $250,000 for a 30-second ad. I went out and said, it's ridiculous. I could stand up here all night. Nobody wants to watch 3.5 or 3 hours. It was a big sacrifice, and I have to hand it to Ben. We called Ben. He was with me 100%. We called in. We said, that's it. We're not doing it. They lost a lot of money. Everybody said it couldn't be done. Everybody said it was going to be 3 hours, 3.5, including them. And in about 2 minutes, I renegotiated it down to 2 hours so we can get the hell out of here. Not bad. Not bad.
That concludes tonight's debate. On behalf of my colleagues, Becky Quick,
A
John
Russian
Harwood,
passenger plane has crashed in the Sinai Desert. The Kogalimavia Airbus A321 was travelling from the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg. The Russian Aviation Authority said that the aircraft failed to make scheduled contact with Cyprus Air Traffic Control 23 minutes after takeoff and disappeared from radar. There were 217 passengers and 7 crew on board the flight. Egyptian search and rescue teams have located the plane in the Hassana area south of Arish in the Sinai Desert. The plane went down in a mountainous area in poor weather. Authorities say it appears unlikely that there are any survivors.
But regardless, I must today end my campaign for the Democratic nomination.
I'm very competitive, and so I feel good about where we are.
You keep saying I'm a grinder. What does that mean?
That means I described it as I eat nails before I have breakfast. I'm focused. I'm competitive. I set high expectations.
Hungry for power games! Harvard law professor Lawrence Lessig dropped out. When did he drop in? Let us salute the fallen.
full scholarship. I never, wait a minute, don't lie. I never said that I received a full scholarship. Nowhere did I say that.
There have been reports today is what I'm trying to
Politico, as you know, told a bold-faced lie. They've been called out on that by the Washington Post and by the New York Times, and I'm sure there'll be several others who will call them out on that, because there are actually some people with integrity in your business.
What I'm trying to get at is
You just told me that you got a scholarship offer. You just said that.
No, she said that I got a scholarship. I never said I got a scholarship.
So
I had
you didn't get a scholarship.
I had people who said yes, that I could get a scholarship to West Point, and I told them that I wasn't interested, that I was going to pursue medicine. I do not remember this level of scrutiny for one President Barack Obama when he was running. In fact, I remember just the opposite. I remember people just, oh, well, we won't really talk about that. We won't talk about that relationship. Well, Frank Marshall Davis, well, we don't want to talk about that. Bernadine Dorn, Bill Ayers, he didn't really know him. All the things that Jeremiah Wright was saying, not a big problem. Goes to Occidental College, doesn't do all that well, and somehow ends up at Columbia University. Well, I don't know. His records are sealed. Why is his record sealed? Why are you guys not interested in why his records are sealed? Why are you not interested in that? Let me ask that. Can somebody tell me why, please?
They are?
I'm asking you why it's sealed. Why? No, don't change it. I'm asking you, will someone tell me, please, why you have not investigated that? I want to know.
Why are you raising it?
Why? Because I want to know. You should want to know, too. The president of, wait a minute. Hold on 1 minute. 1 second here. Now, you're saying that something that happened with the words, a scholarship was offered, is a big deal, but the President of the United States, his academic records being sealed is not. Tell me, wait a minute. Tell me how there's equivalency there. It doesn't matter where it is. Tell me how. That is a silly argument. Tell me how there's equivalence there. Tell me how there is equivalence there. Tell me somebody, please, because you see, what you're not going to find with me is somebody who's just going to sit back and let you be completely unfair without letting the American people know what's going on. And the American people are waking
Contrary
up.
to Donald Trump's assertion, the enduring symbol of our country is not the barbed wire fence, it is the Statue of Liberty. So I believe...
Here's a serious question. Yeah. Of all of the candidates on the Democratic side, you are, rightly or wrongly, considered to be the most hawkish. You have supported all of President Obama's military interventions and some that he hasn't.
I will not. I think it's irresponsible to rule out force. I just will not do that.
As a nation, we are going to have to stop shouting at each other, and we're going to have to come together. It means to say that very strong gun control advocates may not get everything they want. And people who think they should have a missile launcher in their backyard as a constitutional right may not have that.
So if you go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you? I need to know.
And crazy.
Hell yeah, I would.
Even if he was really cute.
No, look, you gotta step up, man. I mean, that would be key. Problem with going back in history and doing that is, as we know from the series, what was the name of the Michael Fox movies?
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. It could have a dangerous effect on everything else.
There's a lot to consider in this.
But I'd do it. I mean,
What the Republican candidates did this weekend while we were in South Carolina, it had a significantly different vibe.
There are families and we're talking Christian families, pastors' families, elders' families, in good godly churches. Their sons are rebelling, hanging out with homosexuals and getting married, and the parents are invited. What would you do if that was the case? Here's what I would do. Sackcloth and ashes at the entrance to the church, and I'd sit in cow manure, and I'd spread it all over my body. That's what I would do. And I'm not kidding. I'm not laughing. I'm grieving. I'm mourning. I'm pointing out the problem. It's not a gay time. These are the people with the sores, the gaping sores, the sores that are pussy and gross, and people are coming in and carving happy faces on the sores. That's not a nice thing to do. Don't you dare carve happy faces on open pussy sores. Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever do that. I tell you, don't do it. Sackcloth and ashes. This is what America needs. America needs to hear the message. We are messed up.
Oh, yeah, we are.
I'm Trish Regan, along with my co-moderator Sandra Smith, and from the Wall Street Journal, Jerry Seid.
Let's introduce them. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum. And Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal.
Free health care, a free or subsidized college education, and you're the party that is seemingly offering nothing in the way of immediate, tangible benefits.
Yeah, sure.
They've never cut anything in D.C. They give these long speeches called filibusters. They pat themselves on the back. Nothing changes. When they go to relieve themselves, their cause and the toilets get flushed at the same time, and the American people lose.
I believe every governor has probably had to make tough decisions. I'm guessing my colleague Governor Christie has, as I'm tossing him the ball like Arkansas did to Ole Miss the other day.
I complimented Bobby. Imagine how much time he'd want if I actually criticized him. I mean,
We have someone who says we need someone who can win in a blue state, and Bobby says we need a real principled conservative.
Senator, I don't think we got the infrastructure, but I understand.
I'll be happy to answer that if you give me the time.
That's right. No, I would,
You know who I respect in the Democratic Party? You know why I respect them? Because they fight.
Whether Janet Yellen is the right person to be running the Fed. If elected president, would you keep Janet Yellen?
Well, my wife's name's Janet. And when you say Janet Yelling, I'm very familiar with what you mean.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. That does it, everyone, for the first debate here in Milwaukee.
Republican presidential debate here on the Fox Business Network. I'm Neil Cavuto, alongside my co-moderators Maria Bartiromo and the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, Gerard Baker.
At center stage, businessman Donald Trump. Neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush.
Businesswoman Carly Fiorina. Ohio Governor John Kasich. And Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
Welders make more money than philosophers. We need more welders and less philosophers. And if we do,
I would like to make a comment. You've already made 2 comments, John. It's my turn.
We have more questions for you, Governor Kasich, coming up. We have more questions for you, Governor Kasich.
I got about 4 minutes last debate. I'm going to get my question right now.
I appreciate it, Jeb. I'm all for you. As a candidate whose brand has always been trust, are you worried your campaign, which you've always said, sir, is bigger than you, is now being hurt by you?
Well, first of all, thank you for not asking me what I said in the 10th grade. I appreciate that.
It's not an adult argument. It makes no sense.
All I can say is you're lucky in Ohio that you struck oil. That's for one thing.
What happened to my question? You're not going to have my back. I'm going to have my back. Let me say a couple things here. First of all, we have grown.
You should let Jeb speak.
We have grown.
No, it's unfair.
In the state of Ohio,
Governor.
Built an unbelievable company worth billions and billions of dollars. I don't have to hear from this man. Believe me. I don't have to hear from him.
Mr. Trump.
Thank you, Donald, for allowing me to speak at the debate. That's really nice of you. Really appreciate that. What a generous man you are.
you know, it took the telephone 75 years to reach 100 million users. It took Candy Crush 1 year to reach 100 million users.
If a bunch of lawyers or bankers were crossing the Rio Grande, or if a bunch of people with journalism degrees were coming over and driving down the wages in the press. Then we would see stories about the economic calamity that is befalling our nation. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible, and not a one of them is as good. 5 major agencies that I would eliminate: the IRS, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and HUD.
Important institution.
Nevertheless, it's not
and yes,
very
I do want to
conservative,
rebuild the
Marco.
American military.
How's it conservative?
I know that Rand is a committed isolationist. I'm not. I believe the world is a stronger and a better place when the United States is the strongest military power in the world.
The idea that it's a good idea for Putin to be in Syria, let ISIS take out Assad, and then Putin will take out ISIS. I mean, that's like a board game. That's like playing Monopoly or something. That's not how the real world works.
To Vladimir Putin right now, although I have met him as well, not in a green room for a show, but in a private meeting.
Ronald Reagan was strong, but Ronald Reagan didn't.
And Ronald Reagan walked away at Reykjavik. He walked away. He quit talking when it was time to quit talking.
Can I finish with my time? Why does she keep interrupting everybody?
Yeah.
Boy, terrible.
That'll do it. Thank you for joining us.
He grew up in the back room of a bar, lost both parents by 22, took responsibility, helped raise his younger sister, worked hard, and finished school. Served 33 years in the military, traveled 35 times to war zones in the Middle East, the one leader to keep America and your family safe and defeat our enemies abroad. Because in a dangerous world, experience matters.
I'm Lindsey Graham, and I approve this message.
For example, one of my favorite scenes is when Wesley, the Dread Private Roberts, is brought in to Billy Crystal, and he's dead. And Billy Crystal explains, he's only mostly dead. And then he pumps him up with the bellows and says, "So, what is it you have that is so worth living for?" He presses on his chest and he goes, "True love." And Inigo Montoya goes, "You see, he said true love. There is nothing better than true love." And Billy Crystal goes, "You're right. There's nothing better, well, except for a nice mutton, lettuce, and tomato salad when the mutton is so lean." But that's not what he said. What he said was to blathe. And to blathe means to bluff. So what happened was you were playing poker, and he came in. And then suddenly Carol Kane, his wife, runs in and goes, "Liar! Shut up, witch! I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. But after what you said, I wish I wasn't." The problem is he's afraid. He's afraid. Ever since Prince Humperdinck fired him, he's been afraid. Do not say that name. What? Humperdinck? Humperdinck, Humperdinck, Humperdinck. I can't hear you! That's why I love the movie. So my media team is now having...
And we are coming back on the air right now with more on that horrifying night in Paris. Police have now confirmed at least 4 attacks in the city of Paris tonight. One at the Stade de France, where there was a major soccer game between France and Germany. The French President Francois Hollande in attendance. In the 10th and the 11th arrondissements at restaurants in that area. Gunmen with Kalashnikovs reported and killing several on the scene. And the most horrifying attack of all at the Bataclan Concert Hall, where an American heavy metal band was playing tonight. Hundreds inside. Several hundred were held hostage for a period of time. And now the AP is reporting that at least 100 have been found dead inside that concert hall. 2 attackers, according to
regime change, whether it was in the early 50s in Iran, whether it was toppling Salvador Allende in Chile, whether it is overthrowing the government of Guatemala way back when. These invasions, these toppling of governments, regime changes have unintended consequences.
Said before you'd go above 50%. How high?
We haven't come up with an exact number yet, but it will not be as high as the number under Dwight D. Eisenhower, which was 90%. But it will be. I'm not that much of a socialist compared to Eisenhower.
Come back
Governor,
to me on
we're
this
gonna
one,
have to
John,
go. I
because we've
apologize.
actually found a way to reduce
Governor?
hospital costs. So whenever we come
Governor,
back to
you're
healthcare,
breaking the rules.
I'd like
I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut for a commercial.
It should always be going up. I mean,
Well,
with
you
all
would
due
index
respect
it.
to
You would index
Secretary
it to
Clinton.
the median wage. Of course, you would
Yeah,
do the
it should.
12 and you would
No.
index it. But
I think we need to stop taking our advice from economists on Wall Street and
He's not
start
on Wall
taking
Street.
advice.
That's not fair.
when we
He's
talk
president.
about Wall Street,
Economists.
Wall Street's a good issue to talk about.
Sanders, you've said that the donations to Secretary Clinton are compromising. So what do you think of her answer?
Not good enough.
I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
When you put out your proposal on Wall Street, it was greeted by many as quote unquote weak tea. It is weak tea. It's what we need to do as a party for comprehensive gun safety.
In all due respect, I think it's fair to say that Baltimore is not now one of the safest cities in America. But the issue is,
but it's a lot. The issue saved a lot of lives along the way, Senator.
Secretary Clinton, one of the tweets we saw said this: "I've never seen a candidate invoke 9/11 to justify millions of Wall Street donations until now." The idea being that, yes, you were a champion of the community after 9/11, but what does that have to do with taking big donations?
Well, I'm sorry that whoever tweeted that had that impression, because I worked closely with New Yorkers after 9/11 for my entire first term to rebuild. And so, yes, I did know people. I've had a lot of folks who give me donations from all kinds of backgrounds saying,
we need to step up and we need to protect Main Street from Wall Street. And you can't do that by campaigning as the candidate of Wall Street.
Let's say you're elected president. Congratulations.
Thank you. Gotten off of Hillary's emails? Good. Let's go to the major issues facing America.
Let me just Secretary Clinton, your response. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Secretary Clinton, your response. I agree completely.
My daughters went to college on a mountain of bills. Man, we were proud of them on graduation day, but we're going to be proud every month for the rest of our natural lives. It doesn't need to be that way. We can have debt-free college in the United States.
Back in 1994, you said that momentum for a single-payer system would sweep the country. That sounds Sanders-esque, but you don't feel that way anymore. Why
Well,
not?
the revolution never came. I waited, and I got the scars to show for it.
I suspend my campaign for President of the United States.
The Hungry for Power game.
Republican Bobby Jindal, the governor of Louisiana, is dropping out.
We pay tribute to the fallen.
Candidates for presidents. Please join me here on stage. Please give them your appreciation. Right here.
Good to see you, my man.
What we noticed Okay. Okay, we've heard it. We've heard it.
Before people are calling each other idiots and all kinds of names. And, you know, my tactic when I see people like that is I just look at them with sympathy. And I say, that used to be a cute little baby. I wonder what happened to it.
What is the role of the government to determine? It's funny, I was expecting this 4 years ago. It didn't happen.
Didn't happen for you.
And I'm getting it today.
We're going to take you in the back way because they're protesters and they've got signs out and we don't want to take you through them. I said, of course you do. Drive me right to them. Oh, are you sure? I said, of course I am. So we went there. I said, stop the car.
And that's why you're using a cane right now.
Yeah. You ought to see those kids.
If you walk into an auditorium full of racist, bigoted people, she said, you don't have a problem. They have a problem. Because she says, because they're all going to cringe and wonder if you're going to sit next to them, whereas you can go sit anywhere you want.
Well, I'm glad Frank said there's no limit. I once stood for 13 hours defending the Bill of Rights, and
This time the little boy has a sign that says free kittens. They're Republicans. Now, at this point, the man is deeply puzzled, thinks this is one of the most curious things he's ever seen. He pulls off on the side of the road. He walks up to the little boy and says, son, I don't understand. A few days ago I was here. You said these kittens were Democrats. Now you say they're Republicans. And the kid looks at him and goes, well, mister, now their eyes are open.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Republican candidates for president.
10,000 people in the room yesterday, 10,000 people. And this guy started screaming by himself. And they did, I don't know, rough up. Maybe he should have been roughed up because it was absolutely.
Especially as a party, need to push back and stand up, not put our finger to the wind, say one thing to one group of people that we're for a wall and we're for a fence, and say another thing to another group of people.
The only way we do that is when there is a political revolution. That's the subtitle of my entire campaign. And what a political revolution means is that millions and millions of people are going to have to be involved in the political process, not just during the campaign, but the day after the election as well.
The latest on the shooting near a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado. Police say 3 people are dead after a shooting at the clinic in Colorado Springs. Those who died Friday include 2 civilians and 1 police officer from the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. The university is about 10 minutes away from the clinic, and officials say the fallen officer responded to help city police with the shooting. Mayor John Suthers says the community mourns the loss of a very brave police officer.
The worst mass shooting since Newtown. It has stunned a country, our entire country, one more time. And this time the crisis played out on live TV, ending with an explosive shootout. There is the SUV driven by the killers. Family members say they were a husband and his wife. You see it completely shot up, hundreds of bullets fired in that final standoff.
It ended less than 4 miles away from where the terrible rampage began, at that government building. Police chasing them from a nearby home.
So many moving images from the scene, survivors embracing, escaping, pausing for a moment of prayer.
14 people were killed in the rampage, another 17 wounded. Police say there were just the 2 shooters, the husband and wife, despite early reports of there being 3. Both of them were killed in that shootout, leaving behind a 6-month-old baby.
So hard to imagine. There's a live look at where it all unfolded.
A first-hand glimpse inside the terror at the Social Services Center.
I'll take a bullet before you do, that's for damn sure.
Which culminated in this wild chase. Dozens of officers closing in on the 2 gunmen speeding away in a black SUV.
Holy guys, shots right now.
Hundreds of shots fired as the married couple inside the vehicle battled with 20 officers. When it was over, the 2 suspects, 28-year-old Saeed Farouk, an American-born citizen who worked in the building for 5 years, and his wife, 27-year-old Tashfeen Malik, both dead. The day of bloodshed started at 11 a.m.
Male in black clothing, still firing rounds.
When the heavily armed couple entered a conference room at the Inland Regional Center, which serves the mentally disabled, during a work training conference.
Thank you for being brief, Wayne, although as he told me on the way out, you've only been alive 44 years. How much is there to say? So thank you very much. We begin today by, of course, our thoughts, our prayers are with those that have been impacted by the attacks in California last night. We are still gathering details. We don't know all the facts yet, but we certainly have learned some facts that are concerning and weigh on our minds in the aftermath of what we see happening in the world.
And listen, Barack Obama is not a bad president because he was a senator. Barack Obama is a bad president because he's an unmitigated socialist who won't stand up and defend the United States of America.
You just like me because my daughter happens to be Jewish, right? She has a great husband, Jared, and I'll tell you what, Ivanka could not be happier, and she's very proud. The only bad news, I can't get her on Saturday. I call and call. I can't speak to my daughter anymore on Saturday, but that's okay.
Not their money, but you cost me $10. I had a side bet that somehow you were going to work out into your speech the hotel you were building right next door to this property.
I'm glad he reminded me.
And you're disappointed. You cost me $10.
I didn't want to do that. You know what? Honestly, I'm building a tremendous hotel down the road.
And I approve this message.
Paid for by Carson.
Crit. One bellows malarkey. Donald Trump repeatedly says one thing, does another. The hypocrite says he's champion of American workers, but had his line of Trump ties made in China. Some of the laborers on his palatial D.C. hotel, illegal immigrants. Neither for president. America needs proven, honorable leadership.
New Day for America is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Las Vegas for the CNN Facebook Republican presidential debate. Let's welcome Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. The former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. I'll beat you over here. Make it a little easier. And former New York Governor George Pataki.
Donald Trump has done the one single thing you cannot do, declare war on Islam itself. ISIL would be dancing in the streets. They just don't believe in dancing. I'm going to support the Republican nominee, whoever he or she may be. Like Bob Dole, I may sleep late that day if it's Trump. But the bottom line, if it's Trump, so be it.
Not all Muslims are jihadists, and no one, including I suspect Donald Trump, would say that. But the reality is, all jihadists are Muslims.
If somebody comes to our borders and says, I'd like to come in, they say, are you a Muslim? Well, if they're going to come in here to kill us, they're not going to say, yeah, and I'm coming to kill you. They're going to lie about it. Anybody that'll kill you, for God's sake, will lie to you. So that's why I say it's impractical.
But George W. Bush made mistakes, but he did adjust. I blame Obama for ISIL, not Bush. I'm tired of beating on Bush. I miss George W. Bush. I wish you were president right now. We wouldn't be in this mess. His favorite movie is apparently Princess Bride. Ted, getting in bed with Iran and Russia to save Assad is inconceivable.
Senator Santorum, let me ask you.
Princess Buttercup would not like this.
We know you agree. Senator Graham, how about you, Governor Pataki? Would you shoot down Russian planes?
I would create the no-fly zone. Yes.
I would create the no-fly zone, and let me tell you something very simply. But if a woman is capable of doing these jobs, there is no reason why we should deny a patriot who wants to serve and help defend our country that right.
Senator Santorum?
So what you just said is you agree with me. Because that's exactly what I said.
I've been a defense attorney, a prosecutor, and a military judge. Mr. Trump, you don't have to speak about everything. It's not required. As to women, if you want to kill terrorists, I am your guy.
No, because he did it unconstitutionally. 23 times he said he couldn't do it, and one day he woke up and he found he had a pen in one hand and the phone in another, and wow, that Constitution didn't mean much anymore.
Thanks to all of the candidates for a very important discussion on critically important issues. This debate night is just getting started. I'm Wolf Blitzer, your moderator tonight. This debate is airing on CNN networks here in the United States and around the world. And
Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. Businessman and real estate developer Donald Trump. Retired neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson. Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina. And Ohio Governor John Kasich.
Thank you, Wolf. Please join me for a moment of silence in remembrance of the San Bernardino victims. Thank you.
And he'd be a chaos president. He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe.
Mr. Trump.
Jeb doesn't really believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in this campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares.
Well, you know, I'm reminded of what FDR's grandfather said. He said, all horse thieves are Democrats, but not all Democrats are horse thieves.
Marco has more of an allegiance to Chuck Schumer and to the liberals than he does to conservative policy.
I want to thank Rand for another 30 seconds.
If your eyes are glazing over like mine, this is what it's like to be on the floor of the United States Senate.
Look, 2 months ago, Donald Trump said that ISIS was not our fight. Just 2 months ago. He said that Hillary Clinton would be a great negotiator with Iran. And he gets his foreign policy experience from the shows.
Come on,
that is not a serious kind of candidate. You said in September 30th that ISIS was not a
am I
not
talking or are you talking, Jeb?
I'm talking right now. I'm talking.
You can go back. You're not talking. You interrupted me,
September
Jeb.
30th,
Are you going to
you said
apologize, Jeb? No. Am I allowed to finish?
Yeah, one at a time.
Excuse
Go ahead,
me. Am I allowed to finish?
Go ahead, Mr. Trump.
So,
little of your
again,
own medicine there.
I know you're trying to build
Bush,
up your energy,
please.
Jeb, but it's not working
One at a
very
time.
well.
Yeah.
Look.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have the strength.
When I say to them, we're going to have to open your head up and take out this tumor. They're not happy about it, believe me. And they don't like me very much at that point. But later on, they love me. Sometimes I sound like him.
You are okay with the deaths of thousands of innocent children and civilians. It's like...
You got it. You got it.
Another question, which is Donald Trump a serious candidate? The reason I ask this is,
but we have to... Who would be... I just can't imagine somebody booing. These are people that want to kill us, folks. And you're objecting to us infiltrating their conversations? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Senator Paul.
Hewitt, go ahead.
Wolf, the question of whether we should be Wolf, the question of whether we should be toppling the question of whether we should be toppling dictatorships is asking the wrong question. We should be defeating our enemies. So the problem with defeating
Senator, we're going to get to you. Wait your turn. We have 2 hours debate. We'll have plenty of time. Let Hugh ask his question.
Well, but let me explain. The focus
Senator,
should
please.
be on defeating our enemies. So, for example,
Senator,
a regime
you'll
we
have
should
plenty of
change
opportunity. Hugh,
is
go
Iran,
ahead.
because Iran
Go ahead, Hugh.
has declared war on us. But we shouldn't be toppling
Senator
regimes that are fighting radical Islamic terrorists and that are helping.
These are the rules all of you agree to. Hugh, go ahead with your question.
Mr. Trump.
We have to do one thing at a time. We can't go, and I watched Lindsey Graham. He said, I've been here for 10 years fighting. Well, he'll be there with that thinking for another 50 years. He won't be able to solve the problem.
Yes, we would shoot down the planes of Russian pilots if, in fact, they were stupid enough to think that this president was the same feckless weakling that the president we have in the Oval Office is right now.
Senator Paul. Senator Paul, I want you to respond to what we just heard from Governor Christie. If there was a no-fly zone, you say that potentially could lead to World War III. Why?
Well, I think if you're in favor of World War III, you have your candidate. You know, here's the thing. I think when we think about the judgment of someone who might want World War III, we might think about someone who might shut down a bridge because they don't like their friends. They don't want to, they want to get a Democrat.
I won't get my information from the shows. I don't know if that's Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I don't know which one.
I think it's very sad that CNN leads Jeb Bush, Governor Bush, down a road by starting off virtually all of the questions. Mr. Trump this, I think it's very sad. And frankly, I think it's very sad. And frankly, I watched the first debate, and the first long number of questions were, Mr. Trump said this, Mr. Trump said that, Mr. Trump.
It wasn't CNN, it was me. I watched you last night for 16 minutes.
I think it's very
not
unprofessional.
CNN. It's not CNN. It's America's watching you.
Okay, fine.
It's America's watching.
So I was mentioned, so I can bring up something, I think, right? Look, the simple fact is, if you think this is tough and you're not being treated
this
fairly,
isn't tough and easy.
Imagine what it's going to be like dealing with Putin, or dealing with President Xi, or dealing with the Islamic terrorism that exists. This is a tough business to run for president.
I know, you're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
real tough.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see, I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
So far I'm doing better. You know, you started off over here, Jeb. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the end.
This doesn't do a thing to solve the problem.
One at a time.
It sounds more.
Hugh, go ahead.
We'll build a wall that works, and I'll get Donald Trump to pay for it.
I'll build it.
Dana. Thank you. Senator Rubio.
To support legalization. And let me tell you how you do this. What you do is you enforce the law. What you do is you enforce the law.
Ms. Fiorina, about this. Ms. Fiorina, please wait your turn. We're going to get to you on this. Go ahead, Senator. Sorry, you haven't gotten to me. This is why is fed up with the political class.
What you do.
You said Senator Cruz is not qualified to be president because he doesn't have the right temperament and acted like a maniac when he arrived in the Senate. But last month, you said you were open to naming Senator Cruz as your running mate.
I did.
So why would you be willing to put somebody who's a maniac one heartbeat away from the presidency?
But I've gotten to know him over the last 3 or 4 days. He has a wonderful temperament. He's just fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Mr. Trump, my listeners tell me again and again they're worried that Hillary Clinton will win the White House because you run as an independent. Are you ready to reassure Republicans tonight that you will run as a Republican and abide by the decision of the Republicans?
I really am. I'll be honest. I really am. I mean, people have been putting me to question. I really am.
I can apply.
Thanks to all the Republican presidential candidates. That does it for this Republican presidential debate. On behalf of everyone at CNN, we want to thank the candidates, Facebook, the Republican National Committee, and the Venetian Las
Campaign
Vegas.
of Bernie Sanders has sued the Democratic National Committee after its access to the national voter database was suspended. Sanders' campaign stated the decision threatens to undermine the Vermont senator's presidential bid as the primary elections loom closer. The DNC's freeze is a problem for the senator's campaign, as it will temporarily lose access to voter data weeks before voting is set to begin in Iowa and New Hampshire. Without access to the voter file, organizing on the ground will become far more difficult difficult for Sanders. The move is likely related to a developing story that Sanders' digital director, Josh Uretsky, inappropriately viewed and saved Clinton campaign data made available due to a software error. Despite admitting the staffer's actions, Sanders' campaign manager has called the DNC's response unacceptable.
Running mate, Russian President Vladimir Putin.
He was my stablemate. I believe I'll get along with him. It was Trump and Putin, Putin and Trump.
The decision would be illegal and unconstitutional, but not unexpected in light of Mr. Trump's recent pro-Putin rhetoric.
Do you like Vladimir Putin's comments about you?
Sure. When people call you brilliant, it's always good.
Vladimir Putin welcomed the news and only had glowing words to say for Trump.
He is a brilliant and talented person, without a doubt.
If elected, Trump promised that the dictatorial duo would, quote, make tyranny great again.
I think I'd get along very well with Vladimir Putin. I just think so.
From St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire, the Democratic debate.
Secretary Hillary Clinton. Senator Bernie Sanders. We heard some of the most heated rhetoric of the campaign so far between two of the campaigns on this stage tonight. Senator Sanders, you fired a campaign staffer. You have sued the Democratic National Committee. All of this after your campaign acknowledged that some of your staffers, quote, irresponsibly accessed data from another campaign.
Because the DNC vendor screwed up, information came to our campaign. In this case, our staff did the wrong thing. They looked at that information. As soon as we learned that they looked at that information, we fired that person. But what the DNC did arbitrarily, without discussing it with us, is shut off our access to our own information, crippling our campaign.
Does Secretary Clinton deserve an apology tonight?
Yes, I apologize.
Missile training videos are telling lone wolves the easiest way to buy a combat assault weapon in America is at a gun show, and it's because of the flip-flopping political approach of Washington that both of my two colleagues on this stage have represented there for the last 40 years. We need common sense.
Let's calm down a little bit, Martin.
Yeah, let's tell the truth, Martin.
I am telling the truth. Let's maybe have some rules here, commentators.
We will.
All right. And let me. You know, if somebody is loading guns and ammunition into a house, I think it's a good idea to call 911. Do it.
Senator Sanders, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. We're going to move on.
May I have a chance to respond to this issue?
We're going to move on to the fight against ISIS. You're the one who told us we have to follow these rules and break it off.
Yeah, but the rule includes equal. Got it.
Okay.
All right.
Let's keep going. Thank you.
Keep going. Okay.
Thank you. So would you shoot down a Syrian military aircraft or a Russian airplane? I do not think it would come to that. We are already deconflicting airspace. But isn't that a decision you should make now? Whether? No, I don't think so. I am advocating. If you're advocating this? I am advocating the no-fly zone. You voted for regime change with respect to Libya. You joined the Senate in voting to get rid of Gaddafi, and you asked that there be a Security Council validation of that with a resolution.
The United States must lead, but the United States is not the policeman of the world. The United States must not be involved in perpetual warfare in the Middle East. The United States, at the same time, cannot successfully fight Assad and ISIS.
And do we believe Secretary Clinton will be coming around the corner any minute? But in the meantime, we want to start with this eye-opening number. And Senator Sanders, this question goes to you first anyway. In 1995, the median American household income was $52,600 in today's money. This year, it's $53,600. That's 20 more years on the job with just a 2% raise. In a similar time frame, raises for CEOs up more than 200%.
Sorry.
Fortune magazine put you on its cover with the headline, Business Loves Hillary, pointing out your support from many CEOs in corporate America. I'm curious, 8 years later, should corporate America love Hillary Clinton?
Everybody should.
Will corporate America love a President Sanders?
No, I think they won't.
The last debate, very shamefully, she tried to hide her cozy relationship with Wall Street big banks by invoking the attacks of 9/11.
When you look at what happened in the 1990s, go to BernieSanders.com. I'll advertise my website as well.
I'm the only
So let's
person
ask
on this
about that.
stage
Secretary Clinton,
saying
let's turn
no
to taxes.
middle-class tax raises. That
Which
is
where
off
we're going
the
next.
table as
We
far
are
as I'm
going next to
concerned.
taxes here.
Now this is getting to be fun.
This is fun.
You have said that Bill Clinton is a great host and loves giving tours, but may opt out of picking flower arrangements if you're elected. Bill Clinton aside, is it time to change the role of a president's spouse?
Well, thank you, good night, and may the force be with you.
Thank you to the candidates tonight. Thank you to the audience here in New Hampshire, here at St. Anselm. And thank you to the audience at home. We wish everyone at home a happy and safe holiday.
Today, I'm suspending my campaign for president. I want to thank everyone who's taken this journey with me. You have honored me with your support. I believe we've run a campaign you can be proud of. We put forward bold and practical solutions to big problems, like retiring our debt and fixing a broken immigration system. This has been a problem solver's campaign. However, the centerpiece of my campaign has been securing our nation. I got into this race to put forward a plan to win a war we cannot afford to lose and to turn back the tide of isolationism that was rising in our party. I believe we made enormous progress in this effort. 4 months ago, at the very first debate, I said that any candidate who did not understand that we need more American troops on the ground in Iraq and Syria to defeat ISIL was not ready to be commander-in-chief. At that time, no one stepped forward to join me. Today, most of my fellow candidates have come to recognize this is what's needed to secure our homeland. I'm far more confident today that our party will reject the Obama doctrine of leading from behind and will provide the strong leadership America needs to restore our military and take the fight to our enemies and do what it takes to make our country safe and preserve our way of life. This is a generational struggle that demands a strategy and the will to win. I will continue to work every day to ensure that our party and our nation takes on this fight. I'm suspending my campaign, but never my commitment to achieving security through strength for the American people. God bless our fighting men and women, and God bless America.
Hi, I'm George Pataki. I was honored to lead the people of New York State as governor for over a decade. I brought to that job the values I learned growing up on a small family farm in the Hudson Valley. The values of hard work, family, faith, and community. But mostly what I brought was a belief in America, that tomorrow would always be better, and that as a free people we could accomplish anything. Today, too many Americans feel their children's future won't be as bright as their own. They are frightened by the prospect of radical Islam attacking us here, and frightened by a government in Washington that grows more and more powerful. If we're truly going to make America great again, we need to elect a president who will do three things: confront and defeat radical Islam, shrink the size and power of Washington, and unite us again in our belief in this great country. As governor on September 11th, yes, I saw unspeakable horror, but I also saw Americans united as never before, and what Americans can do when we stand shoulder to shoulder. On that day and the days that followed, we weren't black or white, rich or poor, Republican or Democrat. We were just Americans. We need to recapture that spirit, because I know when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. While tonight is the end of my journey for the White House as I suspend my campaign for president, I'm confident we can elect the right person, someone who will bring us together and who understands that politicians, including the president, must be the people's servant and not their master. I know the best of America is still ahead of us. Happy New Year, May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm George Pataki, and I approve this message.